True friendships have a way of just happening. No planning or working at them, really. You just kind of click. And that instant click and the years of friendship that followed it, involving one of America's most loved artists and a friend of hers you probably never even heard of, are the focus of Always Patsy Cline, opening February 2nd at the Oak Street Playhouse. Beth McClary Wolford plays Patsy. Andrew Chauncey is the show's musical director, guiding her through more than, 20-something hits of Patsy's that are in the show?
27, yes.
You're not counting?
You're not counting at all.
So, okay, I had fun because I did a little bit of research into this show, and I got kind of hooked into this friendship. I almost don't even know where to start, Beth, but it's true, right? This friend, Louise, what was her last name?
Louise Sager.
Didn't even know Patsy. She was just a fan.
Yes, she was a fan, and they met at one of Patsy Cline's gigs.
In Houston.
In Houston, Texas. And obviously, Patsy, I can understand why Patsy fell in love with her, because she was just a energetic, fun-loving, humorous woman who took her under her wing, and they just became fast friends.
I mean, quite literally. I won't tell the whole story, and I have no idea how this all works out, so you'll have to tell us. But she goes to Houston this night, finds out that Patsy's going to be performing there, gathers her friends, and then sees her at a table, right? And walks over and just has enough guts to introduce herself. And then when she sees her hailing a cab to go to the hotel, she says, nah, come home with me. That's crazy.
Come home with me
I
to
would do
eat
that.
bacon and eggs.
Yes, you would do that.
Yes, you would, Andrew. You certainly would. You certainly would.
Okay, so let's talk on the music side of things for a minute. So the show is essentially just the two of you, right? You and Louise. And it's a series of letters exchanged over the years, is that right?
So
the show, throughout the show, it does cover a lot of Patsy Cline hits. Now, I have found that if I ask people, name all the Patsy Cline songs you know, they name usually 4 to 6 songs. As she said, there's 27 songs in this, both all that she had sang or covered and done at some point in her career. And so towards the end of the show, there is a song that is centered around these letters that Patsy and Louise wrote back and forth to each other while she was traveling.
Okay, so it's kind of the story of her and then the friendship part of it too.
Yeah.
Okay, and she would end the letters by saying, love always, Patsy Cline.
Yes.
That's the name. Okay, so does it chronicle then Patsy Cline's kind of rise to fame, or not so much?
I think the show itself is so much more centered around the relationship between Patsy and that friendship.
Okay.
You get the idea of Patsy on the road and doing all this traveling, but it really centers around them meeting and that initial start of that friendship.
Okay.
And then as the letters come through, it gives that feeling of she's off traveling, her career is, taking off, and she's still keeping in touch with Louise all that time.
So here you are as the music director. Were you a big Patsy Cline fan?
I wouldn't say like I followed her music per se. I would have been in the same boat. I could have named 4 songs probably. Like the majority of the music in this show, I was like, I have never heard this before.
Right.
I was not familiar with it.
Okay, so I'll reveal an ugly side of myself. So I would not have ever considered myself to really be a Patsy Cline fan. I mean, I know Crazy, and I know all the Walking After Midnight.
Yep.
But to listen to her, I think I would kind of just go, oh yeah. And then you really listen to her. That must be a challenge for you to follow in those footsteps, because she's a clean singer.
she's very clean. And she didn't know how to read music. And I mean, she wasn't a trained singer, so but she was really, I call her the Adele of the 1960s.
That's a good one. Okay, something else I read is that she had a very difficult childhood, but that she got sick. Do you know the story? When she was like early teens, and the story was that she went in for some kind of treatment on her throat, and when she was finished with it, that's when she began to sing. I don't know if that's a true story or not, but I wonder if that speaks to because there was a very unique quality to her voice.
And a lot of her stuff is low too.
Yeah, it's really
it's
low.
lower, very straight, solid tone into it. She has a unique voice.
So have you always been a Patsy Cline fan?
I have, and my father was a big Patsy Cline fan, so which was my attachment to the show. My father, before he passed away, which is one reason why when I was asked what was something I wanted to do, and I shared Always Patsy Cline, my father, before he passed away, he said, if a father can have a bucket list of things that he would like to see his daughter do, Always Patsy Cline is on the top. Oh. And so it's really sort of special.
Yeah. So are you vacuuming at your house and listening to Patsy Cline music to try to channel her?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
I feel like that's all I've listened to.
Yeah, my husband said, could we watch a show? And I said, you can watch whatever you want. I'm going to keep listening.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah.
What about the challenges of it being just two people?
Well, that's always challenging. That's, yeah.
And
it's really challenging, and I'm going to brag on Haley Duncan, who plays Louise. She's the rock star of the show because she's the one that's telling the story. I'm just singing. I mean, when I say I just sing, yes, it's 27 songs, and she helps tell the story through her music. But the story's told by Louise.
Well, also, from an acting perspective, Patsy Cline is a known figure. So you kind of have something to study.
Yes.
But nobody really knew Louise.
Right. Right. And it's amazing. The show, usually in shows there's dialogue and you're bantering back and forth. This doesn't have so much of that. It is pages and pages of just dialogue that Louise tells us. She's telling the story. It's not a lot of back and forth. So I mean, it's like you're giving a monologue. I mean, even I would be like, I'm not doing that.
So for you as the music director, Andrew, then is your challenge to kind of make the music connect all the different pieces?
Yeah, and they've done a really good job of telling the story, and the story kind of sets up the next segment of songs. And it's almost like a little bit, it comes into like a little bit of the present, sometimes they're together, and then some of it is Louise telling the story, and it's almost like then you flash back to what's happening there. But it does a good job of setting up the songs.
Is it challenging to have these songs that are so well known, and like which do you do? Do you just sing it the way everybody knows it on the radio, or do you put your own spin on it?
I'll say for the accompaniment part of it, the score is very interesting. There is some score on there, and then there's a lot of it says improvise. And so it's a lot of listening to how they recorded it and played it, because there's some intros, like you hear the intro to Crazy, you're going to expect it to sound a certain way. You know, so you want those type things to sound a certain way. Songs that were not as familiar, a lot of that boogie woogie type stuff that she did, people aren't as familiar with that, so they're probably not going to know if the band is just right on. But I mean, the music's written pretty close to how all of those musicians would have just improvised and done
And this is completely unnecessary to say, but I'm going to, as I look at your beautiful blonde hair, that wig is something.
It is something.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you transform.
That's the goal, right? That's the goal. I'm not Beth up there.
That's
I'm
right.
Patsy, and it's a lot of fun.
So here's what you got to do. To get your tickets, Beth says the easiest thing is just Google Always Patsy Cline.
Yes.
But you can go to onthestage.tickets. It's also the Oak Street Playhouse is at First Centenary Methodist Church. But there are only limited showings, and it's not a huge venue, so don't wait until the last minute, and a fun Valentine's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect one.
Break a leg.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rick Davis. I am so very thankful